After the rattlesnake bit her thigh, the Apache neighbor begged, "Rancher, please get the poison out." The snake was already gone when Cole Danner found her. He had been riding the fence line along the south end of his property, checking for breaks after the night wind had knocked 2 posts sideways, when he heard it. Not a scream, but something worse. A sharp, cut-off cry, the kind a person makes when the pain arrives before the mind is ready for it. He dug his heels into the horse's flanks, and the animal lunged forward through the brush. She was on the ground near the dry creek bed, her back against a flat-faced boulder, her right hand pressed hard against her left thigh. Her dark hair was loose and tangled across her face. Her breathing came in short, tight pulls. The grass around her was still moving where something had slithered away through it. Cole was off the horse before it fully stopped. He dropped to one knee beside her. Her name was Naya. She was 26 years old, Apache, and she lived on the parcel of land that bordered his ranch to the east. Land that had belonged to her grandfather, then her father, now her. She had lived there alone for 3 years. Cole had spoken to her maybe a dozen times in all that time. Enough to know she was quiet and proud, and did not ask for help unless the sky was actually falling. The sky, right now, was falling. "Let me see it," he said. She moved her hand, and 2 small puncture marks, swelling already, the skin around them going red and tight. The marks were high on her outer thigh, close to where the denim had ridden up when she knelt or crouched or whatever she had been doing out here alone. "Western diamondback," she said. Her voice was steady, but her jaw was tight. "I heard it too late." Cole looked at the wound, then at her face, then at the position of the sun. It was past noon. The nearest town with a doctor was Harlan's Crossing, a 34 miles of bad road to the northwest. His ranch house was a 1.5 miles south. His truck was at the ranch house. "How long ago?" he asked. "Maybe 5 minutes." He pulled the bandana from around his neck. "I'm going to wrap this above the wound. Not a tourniquet, just firm. It slows the spread a little. Then we're going to my house, and I'm putting you in the truck." She did not argue. That told him more about how she felt than her face did. He wrapped the bandana carefully, or tied it flat and even, and then looked at the horse. The animal was a solid quarter horse named Roper. 17 hands, steady as a fence post under pressure. Cole could get her up onto the saddle, but if the venom moved fast and she lost consciousness on the trail, she could fall. He decided against it. "Can you walk if I take your weight?" he asked. "Yes." He got his arm around her waist, her arm over his shoulder, and they started moving. She was lean and strong, and she kept pace with him, even though every step must have driven fire up through her leg. She did not complain. She did not make a sound. She just walked, her jaw set, her eyes forward, one hand gripping his shoulder hard enough that he would find the bruises there the next morning. Roper followed behind them without being led. Good horse. The land between the creek bed and Cole's ranch house was rough going. Broken scrub, loose caliche soil, a shallow gully they had to angle around. The sun was direct and hot. Cole could feel the sweat soaking through his shirt within the first quarter mile. Naya's breathing stayed controlled, but he could feel her grip tightening the further they went. The venom working through her system and her body fighting it hard. He did not talk to fill the silence. She did not need that from him. What she needed was the truck and 34 miles of road and a doctor who knew what he was doing, wherein they covered the 1.5 miles in just under 20 minutes. Cole's ranch house was a low, wide building of pale adobe. a covered porch running along the front, a stock barn visible behind it. His housekeeper, a stout woman named Pearl, who had worked on the property since Cole's father ran it, was hanging laundry on the line at the side of the house when she saw them coming. She dropped the sheet she was holding and came across the yard at a run that was impressive for a woman of 60. "Miss Snake," Cole said before Pearl could ask. Pearl looked at Naya's leg, took in the wrapped bandana, and went straight to the house without a word. By the time Cole got Naya through the front door and onto the long bench in the main room, Pearl was already on the telephone, talking to someone at the Harlan's Crossing Clinic. Cole sat Naya down and crouched in front of her. Her color had shifted. There was a gray undertone beneath the warm brown of her skin now, and her left hand was resting in her lap with a faint tremor that had not been there 20 minutes ago. "We are going to drive out of here in 4 minutes," he said. "I know," she said. "The doctor in Harlan's is a good one." "I know that too." She looked at him then, straight on, no flinching. "I did not want to have to ask you for anything, Danner." He said nothing to that. There was nothing to say to it. Pearl appeared in the doorway. "Dr. Marsh is expecting her, and he is pulling the antivenin from storage now." Cole stood. "Get her a glass of water. Keep her calm while I get the truck." He went out the back and across the yard to the equipment barn, moving fast. The truck was a heavy, dark green Ford, 10 years old and built for rough country. He swung into the cab, turned the engine over, and backed it out into the yard. Pearl had Naya on her feet when he came around to the front. They got her into the passenger seat, Pearl handing a folded blanket up through the window, even though the temperature was 90 degrees. "She might go cold," Pearl said quietly to Cole. He nodded. He looked at Naya one more time before he put the truck into gear. She was sitting straight, her hands folded in her lap, the faint tremor still there. 34 miles, he said. "Drive fast," she said. He drove fast. The road north out of his property was a dirt track for the first 8 miles before it met the county blacktop. Cole pushed the truck hard across the dirt, one hand tight on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. Beside him, Naya breathed slow and even and looked straight ahead through the dust-coated windshield. The tremor in her hands was getting worse. He drove faster. The blacktop came up, and the truck hit it with a jarring thump, on the rear end sliding a half-foot before the tires caught. Cole corrected and accelerated and pushed the speedometer past 70. 26 miles to go. He watched the road. He watched her. She said nothing. He said nothing. The engine roared, and the miles came apart beneath them, and the afternoon sun threw their shadow long and thin behind them across the empty desert road. Pearl was still standing in the yard when Cole brought the truck back 12 hours later, and the clinic's business card in his shirt pocket and the smell of antiseptic on his jacket. She looked at his face. "She is alive," he said. "They are keeping her for 2 days." Pearl let out a breath she had been holding, it seemed, since noon. Cole walked past her into the house, took off his hat, and sat down at the kitchen table. Pearl put a plate of food in front of him without asking. He ate without tasting it. Outside, where the desert dark settled in, and the coyotes started up in the distance, and somewhere to the east, across the property line that divided his land from hers. Naya's house sat empty and quiet under the stars. He would go to get her when the clinic released her. She had not asked him to. He was going anyway. Part 2. Dr. Marsh kept Naya for 2 nights, not 1. Cole showed up at the clinic on the morning of the 3rd day, hat in hand, truck idling in the gravel lot outside. The receptionist, A young woman named Della with a streak of red in her brown hair gave him a look that said she had him filed as either family or trouble and was not sure which. "I am her neighbor," Cole said. "I am the one who brought her in." Della picked up the phone, made a quiet call, and then nodded him through. Naya was in a room at the end of the hall. She was sitting upright in the bed, her dark hair braided back now, a paperback book face down on the blanket beside her, and there was an IV line still taped to the back of her left hand. The swelling in her thigh had gone down, but when she moved to sit straighter at the sound of his boots in the doorway, Cole saw the effort it cost her. "I thought Pearl would come," she said. "Pearl sent food." He held up a cloth bag. "She packed enough for a week." Something shifted in Naya's face. Not quite a smile, but the architecture of one. "Tell her I said thank you." Cole set the bag on the table beside the bed and pulled the chair from the corner. He sat. He did not ask how she was feeling. He could see how she was feeling. "Dr. Marsh says you can come home today," he said. "He told me the same thing 20 minutes ago." "Then let us get you out of here." She looked at him for a moment, steady and measuring, the way she looked at most things. Naya was not a woman who gave her trust in installments. She either had a reason to extend it, or she did not. "You did not have to come back," she said. "I was coming back regardless," he said. "Your property needs checking. You have been gone 3 days." She looked at him a moment longer. Then she reached for the paperback and closed it. "Fine," she said. "Help me get dressed, and I will not argue with you." He stepped out into the hall while she changed. Dr. Marsh found him there, a compact man in his 50s with wire glasses and the unhurried manner of someone who had been practicing in small desert towns long enough to know that panic was useless. "The wound is clean," Marsh said quietly. "The antivenin took well. She is going to have soreness and some lingering fatigue for a week, possibly 2. No riding, no heavy work. She should not be alone for the first 48 hours, if you can manage it." "I can manage it," Cole said. Marsh looked at him over the rim of his glasses. "She is not an easy patient. I would not expect her to be." She tried to remove her own IV at hour 6. Cole said nothing to that. He could picture it exactly. Marsh went back down the hall. Cole waited. When the door opened, Naya came out walking carefully but upright, her boots on, her jacket over her arm. She handed him the cloth bag Pearl had sent. "Carry this," she said. He carried it. They drove south out of Harlan's Crossing with the mid-morning sun already climbing hard. Naya sat against the passenger door with her knee angled out to take weight off the wound site, watching the desert scroll past. The same road they had burned up 3 days ago, now unhurried, now just road. Cole drove easy. "You were checking my fence line when you found me," Naya said after a long silence. "My fence line," he said. "Your side of it is yours. The creek bed is on your side." "I know. I was following the tracks of a young doe. She's expecting. I have been watching her for 3 weeks." Naya paused. She was using the creek bed in the morning to come down to the water. Cole nodded. He had seen the doe's tracks himself once or twice and had left them alone. "I was not paying attention to the ground the way I should have been," Naya said. And this was the closest thing to self-criticism he had ever heard from her. And it came out flat and factual, the way she stated everything. "Diamondbacks are quiet in the afternoon heat," Cole said. "They do not rattle until they are already striking." "I know what they do." She said it without heat. "I know you know." Another silence. The road dipped through a dry wash, the truck tilting and rocking. And Naya put one hand on the dash, without thinking. My grandfather was bitten twice, she said. Both times on the hand. Both times he cut it and drew the venom out himself. She paused. I know that is not the recommended method. It stopped being recommended a long time ago, Cole said. It does not work as well as people think. I know that now. She was quiet for a moment. When it happened, I thought about trying it. I had my knife. The truck moved on. Cole thought about what it would have taken for a woman like Naya to stay her own hand and wait for help instead. That was a kind of courage that did not advertise itself. He said nothing. They turned off the county blacktop and onto the dirt track. 2 miles to his ranch house, then another mile east to hers. The track was rutted from the wind, and Cole slowed down, watching the ground. You can take me directly to my place, Naya said. Dr. Marsh said not to be alone for 48 hours. Dr. Marsh does not know me. He knows venom, Cole said. The recommendation stands. She looked at him sideways. Her expression was the particular one she reserved for situations where she had already decided to object, but had not yet found the right angle for it. Cole kept his eyes on the road. I have water and food, and I am capable of resting without supervision, she said. Pearl has already made up the guest room, he said. She will be very put out if you do not use it. A beat of silence. That is not a fair argument, Naya said. No, he agreed. But it is a true one. She turned back to the window. 2 days, she said. And I want it understood that this is not something I'm making a habit of. Understood, he said. Pearl was on the porch when they pulled up. She came down the steps and took Naya's arm without being asked, and walked her inside, talking in a low and steady stream about the guest room and the soup she had made and the particular pillow situation she had arranged. Cole stood at the truck and listened to the sound of their boots cross the porch and go through the door. He pulled his hat off and looked east across the flat land toward Naya's property. Her house was sitting quiet out there. Smoke stain on the chimney. A corral with 2 horses visible against the afternoon light. A garden she kept along the south wall, untidy rows he could see from here if he squinted. 3 years she had been over there alone. He put his hat back on and went inside. Pearl had installed Naya in the guest room with the efficiency of a field general. Naya was sitting on the edge of the bed, removing her boots, a bowl of soup already on the small table beside her. I heard her tell you 2 days, Pearl said to Cole in the hallway, her voice low and amused. 2 days, Cole confirmed. She will want to leave by tomorrow afternoon. Probably. Pearl folded her arms. She is proud. Yes. So are you. She looked at him steadily. That makes it more interesting, I suppose. He went back outside before she could say anything else. Part 3. Cole woke before dawn on the first morning of Naya's stay and lay still in the dark for a few seconds, listening to the house. It was quiet. He dressed, went to the kitchen, made coffee, and took it out to the porch, and the stars were still out. The desert was the particular shade of deep purple it got in the last hour before light. Somewhere off to the east, one of Naya's horses called out and was answered by Roper from Cole's barn. He drank his coffee and watched the sky. At 5:30, the back door opened and Naya came out. She was dressed, her braid redone, her boots on. She moved with a slight stiffness on the left side, but she was not favoring it the way she had the day before. She looked at the second chair on the porch. Cole did not say anything. She sat down. He went in and got her a cup of coffee and came back out and handed it to her. She took it without comment. They sat in the early quiet while the sky went from purple to gray to the first thin gold along the east ridge. After a while, Naya said, "Tell me about the south fence line." So Cole told her, where the posts had gone down, what the ground looked like along the creek bed, us where the brush had grown over the wire in 2 places. She listened without interrupting, her coffee held in both hands, her gaze on the horizon. "The diamondback was denning under the flat rock," she said when he finished. "There was a second one, smaller. I saw it move when the first one struck." Cole had not known about the second one. "I need to mark that den," she said, "so I know to avoid it until they move on in the fall." "I will go with you when you are ready," he said. She looked at him sideways again. "I do not need accompaniment to mark a den site." "I know you do not need it," he said. "I want to know where it is on my end of the fence, too." She accepted this. It was the sort of answer she respected. Practical. No sentiment attached. Pearl made breakfast and they ate it at the kitchen table. And Pearl talked enough for all 3 of them, which suited Cole and apparently suited Naya, who ate steadily and listened and occasionally made short and precise responses that Pearl received with great warmth. After breakfast, Naya went to the porch and Cole saddled 2 horses. He did not ask. He just saddled them and brought them around. Naya looked at the horses, then at him. "Short ride," he said, "just to see your place. We can check that your stock is all right and come straight back." Her horses were fine. A short coupled bay gelding and a gray mare, both well-fed and unbothered. And Naya stood at the corral fence and watched them move for a long moment. And something in her posture eased that Cole had not realized was tight. "The gray is 4 months along," she said. Cole looked at the mare. The barrel on her was indeed beginning to round. "First foal?" he asked. "First for her. She's 5 years old. She's ready." They stood there a while, watching the horses. The morning had warmed up, and a red-tailed hawk was making long, slow circles above the far ridge. Aunt Naya's house was tidy and tight behind them. Adobe like his, but smaller, with a covered well on the east side and the garden she kept along the south wall. Neat rows of pepper plants and something dark-leafed Cole did not recognize. "Sage and 4 kinds of medicinal plants," Naya said, following his look. "Your grandmother's knowledge?" he guessed. "My mother's." She paused a beat. "She died when I was 14. He did not ask how. He did not say he was sorry. And she had not offered it for condolences. She had offered it because it was a fact about herself, the way she offered most things. "My father died when I was 17, Cole said. "The ranch almost went with him." She looked at him. "Almost," he said. She nodded once. That was enough. They rode back. That afternoon, Pearl pulled Cole aside in the kitchen and said, in the tone she used for things she considered important, "She asked me about your wife." Cole stopped with his hand on the cabinet door. "What did you tell her?" "What is true? That you have not had one." Pearl looked at him steadily. She did not ask in a romantic way. She asked because she wanted to understand the shape of things here. She is that kind of person. Cole knew she was that kind of person. He had sensed it from the first conversation he had ever had with her, not 3 years ago over a shared property line that neither of them had been sure about. "What did you tell her about me?" he asked. Pearl's expression was the particular fond and exasperated one she wore when he asked questions with obvious answers. "I told her you are a fair man and a stubborn one, and that you kept your father's land and your father's word, and that the people who have worked for you have not left." She paused. I told her that is not nothing. Cole put his hat on the counter. Ma, she said it was not nothing. Pearl added. Those were her exact words. He went back outside. Naya was on the porch with her book, her left leg extended along the bench, her shoulders finally, genuinely at ease. She did not look up when he came through the door. He sat in his chair. Pearl talks, he said. Yes, Naya said. She is good at it. Did you get what you wanted to know? She turned a page. Most of it. He looked out at the land. The hawk from this morning was gone. The day was settling into the long, honey-colored late afternoon that this part of the desert did better than anywhere else on Earth. The kind of light that made everything look like it had been standing there for 1,000 years and would stand for 1,000 more. My grandfather told me once that you could know the character of a man by how his animals looked, Naya said, without looking up from her book. Cole waited. Your horses are calm, she said. Your stock is well. Yes, your fences hold. She paused. Pearl is happy. Pearl runs this house, Cole said. I would not dare cross her. No, Naya said, but you could, and you do not. She closed her book and looked at him then, straight on. That is the part that answers the question. He did not know what to say to that, so he said nothing. The afternoon light held them both, and the desert was quiet. And somewhere from the direction of the south fence line, when the sound of the creek moving over rocks came just barely to them on the wind. Part 4. On the second morning, the mare foaled early. Cole was already in the barn at 4:30 when he heard the gray go down. He had half suspected it might come. She had been restless the night before, pawing and circling. And he had checked her twice after midnight. But the foal came faster than he expected, and by the time he got to her stall, the little one was already on the ground, she wet and dark and working its legs. He stood at the stall gate and let the mare do her work. Naya appeared at the barn door 20 minutes later, barefoot, jacket thrown over her shoulders. She looked at the foal. The foal looked back at her, enormous dark eyes blinking in the lantern light. Naya came to the stall gate and stood beside Cole. Neither of them spoke. The foal got its front legs under it after 3 tries, wobbled, found its hind legs, and stood. It was a colt, all leg and ear, a gray like his dam, but with a white blaze down the nose that looked almost painted on. Good bones? Naya said. He will be something in 2 years. Cole agreed. They stood there in the warm barn, while the sky outside went from black to gray. Naya's hands were on the top rail of the stall gate, and the foal, curious and unafraid, walked forward on uncertain legs and touched his nose to her fingers. She went very still. Cole watched her face. There are people who are moved by animals in a way they would never allow themselves to be moved by much else. And Naya was one of them. Her expression was the open, unguarded one he had only glimpsed once before, on the morning of the hawk. The one that existed before she remembered to put the careful, composed face back on. What will you name him? She asked. Have not decided, Cole said. I usually wait to see what they turn out to be. She nodded slowly. Even my grandfather named horses that way. He said a name given too early is just a guess. The colt turned away and went back to his dam, and Naya's hands came off the rail and the careful expression returned. They walked back to the house. Pearl had, predictably, already started breakfast. Over coffee and eggs, Naya said. I want to go home today. Cole looked at his cup. That is your call to make. She looked up from her plate. You are not going to argue with me. You are 2 days out from a bad bite. You are moving better than yesterday, and you are not the kind of woman who stays somewhere out of convenience, Cole said. Arguing would be a waste of both of our time. Pearl set a dish down with slightly more force than necessary. Neither of them looked at her. I want to check the den site first, Naya said. We can do that this morning. They saddled up after breakfast. The south fence line was 40 minutes out, and the morning was still cool enough to make the ride easy. Naya rode her bay gelding, which Pearl had gone to retrieve from the corral the previous afternoon while Cole and Naya were on the porch. The bay moved under her, like they had an agreement. Cole let her set the pace. They came down into the creek bed from the north, angling in through the willow scrub that ran along the bank. The flat rock was where Naya had described it, wide and pale and sun-bleached, wedged between two larger boulders where the bank curved. They stopped the horses 20 feet back. Naya looked at the rock for a long moment. They will be in there until the weather shifts, she said. Late October, probably. Cole looked at the ground around the rock. The sand near it showed the faint, brushed track of something moving through it. I will put a marker post on my side, he said, far enough back that it is visible before you get close. Naya pulled a length of red cord from her jacket pocket. She had come prepared. She knotted it around a dead mesquite branch, 10 feet from the rock at eye level. They both looked at the marker. That will do, Cole said. They turned the horses and rode back toward the fence line, and somewhere above them in the thin blue sky, the red-tailed hawk from the day before was up again, riding the thermals with that particular effortless patience that made Cole think of people who had been watching the same land for a very long time. At the fence line, they stopped. This was the edge of his property. Past the wire, it was hers. Naya turned her horse to face him. The bay gelding stood quiet. I owe you something, she said. You do not. I do, she said, and I do not mean money, so do not look at me like that. She paused. I mean, I owe you an accounting. When someone does a thing for you, you do not leave it hanging. Cole shifted in the saddle. This was uncomfortable territory, and she knew it, and she was in it anyway, which was, he was beginning to understand, simply how she operated. You came when you heard me, she said. You did not hesitate. You did not make anything of it. You just came. She looked at him with that straight, measuring look. In my experience, that is not common. It is what anyone would do, Cole said. No, she said quietly. It is not. He did not answer that. He did not have an answer for it. Naya gathered her reins. My father used to say that generosity given without keeping score is the only kind worth having. She looked out across her property for a moment. He was talking about something else when he said it. But it fits here. She put her heels to the bay and crossed through the gate. She did not look back. Cole sat on Roper and watched her ride across the flat ground toward her house, the morning light long and clean behind her. The gray mare's corral was visible from here, and even at this distance, Cole could just make out the small, spindly shape of the new foal standing near the fence. He sat there a while, after she disappeared into the house. Then he turned Roper and rode back to his own land. That evening, Pearl set the table for one without comment, and Cole ate, and the house was quiet in the way it had always been quiet. The solid, unremarkable quiet of a place that held the same shape year after year. He noticed it more than usual. He was in the barn checking on the colt just before dark when he heard hoofbeats from the east. He came out of the barn and looked toward Naya's property. She was riding the fence line from her side, moving at an easy trot. She had a bedroll tied behind the saddle and a rifle in the scabbard. She stopped when she saw him. "I am going after the doe," she called across the distance. "She is close to dropping her fawn. I want to make sure the den site does not interfere." Cole nodded. "I will be back by morning," she said. "The den is settled in for the season," he said. "She knows to stay north." "I know she does." Naya looked at him across the fence. "I am going anyway." He understood that. She rode on. He watched until she was a dark shape moving into the last of the evening light. And then he went back into the barn to check on the colt one more time before he turned in. The colt was standing steady now, already more confident in his legs than he had been that morning. Cole rubbed him between the ears. "Give it 2 years," he said. Part 5. 3 weeks after the snake bite, a rider came to Cole's ranch from the direction of town. His name was Earl Cutler. He was 40 years old, and wide through the shoulders, and he rode a flashy paint horse that looked better than its owner. He had been buying up land along the eastern county boundary for the better part of 2 years. Not running cattle on it, not farming it, just buying it and sitting on it and waiting for something Cole had not figured out yet. Cutler pulled up at the fence and pushed his hat back. "Morning, Danner." Cole was mending a section of the south fence near the creek bed. He kept working. "Cutler, heard you had some excitement out here a few weeks back. Snake trouble." Cole set a staple and drove it. "News travels. Small county." Cutler rested his arms on the saddle horn. "I heard it was your Apache neighbor, the woman with the east parcel." "Her name is Naya," Cole said. Cutler shrugged the name off. "I have been trying to talk to her about that parcel. She is not interested in selling, she says." He paused. "But I figure a woman alone out here. Something like that happens. Snakebite, middle of nowhere. Might be willing to reconsider. Safety being what it is." Cole drove the last staple and stood up. He looked at Cutler the way you look at a man when you want to be very sure he understands what you are about to say. "Her land is not for sale," Cole said. "And her being alone on it is her business, not yours." Cutler smiled the kind of smile that did not mean anything good. "Danner, I am not asking you. I am being neighborly. Thought you might pass the message." "I will not," Cole said. Cutler looked at him for a moment, then pulled his hat back down and turned the paint horse without hurrying. "Suit yourself," he said. "But that land is going to sell eventually. Everything does." He rode north. Cole watched him go, then picked up his tools and walked back toward the barn. He thought about it for the rest of the morning. At noon, he rode east. Naya was in the garden when he arrived, kneeling between 2 rows of pepper plants, her hands dark with soil. She looked up when she heard Roper. Cole stepped down from the saddle and told her about Cutler. He told her straight, no softening, no editorializing. Just what the man had said and how he had said it and what the tone of it was. Naya listened with her hands still in the dirt. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "He has been here twice," she said. "Once in the spring and once in June. I told him no both times." "He will come again," Cole said. "I know he will." She looked down at the plants in front of her. "My grandfather bought this land with money he worked 20 years for. My father ran cattle on it for 30 years. I have the deed, the title, and the water rights." She looked back up at Cole. "There is nothing legal he can do?" "No," Cole said. But men like Cutler do not always stay legal. She sat back on her heels. What are you suggesting? Cole turned his hat in his hands. I am not suggesting anything. I am telling you that I know what kind of man he is. And I am telling you that you should know I am aware of the situation. She looked at him. That is all, he said. Naya stood, brushing the soil from her hands. She was quiet for a long moment, looking east across her land, the flat, wind-combed grass, the rocky ridgeline in the far distance, the dry creek bed hidden in the brush below. My father used to say the land knows who belongs to it, she said. He said if you work it honestly and keep your word to it, it keeps its word to you. Cole did not know how to answer that, so he did not try. You have worked your land that way, Naya said. It was not a question. I have tried to, he said. She looked at him for a moment. Then she said, Come in and have water, and I will show you something. He tied Roper at the fence and followed her in, where the inside of her house was lean and ordered. Adobe walls, a stone fireplace, a long table of pale wood. Along the east wall, a set of shelves held books, dried plants in bundles, 2 rows of small clay figures that Cole recognized as traditional Apache work. Naya took a rolled paper from a wooden box on the table and spread it out. It was a hand-drawn map, the property lines, the creek bed, the ridge to the east. Her parcels and his, and beyond them, the land Cutler had been buying. She had been mapping it. He is building a corridor, she said, tracing the line with one finger. He wants access to the ridge watershed. There is water up there, deep water. If he controls the land between the creek and the ridge, he controls the water access for this entire part of the county. She looked up. It is not about the land. It is about the water. Cole looked at the map. She was right. The pattern was clear once you saw it. How long have you known this? He asked. Since June, she said. When he came the second time, he let something slip about water rights. I started putting it together after that. Cole straightened up and looked at her. You have been sitting on this alone. It is my land, she said. It affects mine too, he said quietly. The same watershed runs under both our properties. She looked at the map. Cole put his finger on the line between their 2 parcels. If he gets the ridge and the creek access, your water dries up first, then mine follows in 2, maybe 3 dry seasons. He looked at her. He may know that. Naya was very still. Or he may not, Cole said. He may just be thinking about the money and the water rights and not about the people already on the land. Men like him usually are. She rolled the map up slowly and set it back in the box. What do we do? She asked. Cole put his hat on. We go see a lawyer in Harlan's Crossing. We go together, like we document the pattern before he makes another move. He looked at her. And we stop being 2 separate problems he can handle one at a time. Naya looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, When? Tomorrow morning, he said. If that works for you. It works, she said. He walked back to Roper and swung up. Naya stood at the gate of her garden, her arms at her sides. The afternoon light was behind her, the garden green and orderly behind her, like the desert stretching away in every direction the way it had stretched since long before either of them had been born. Danner, she said. He looked at her. My grandfather said something else about neighbors, she said. He said a good one is rarer than water in August. She met his eyes. I think you qualify. He put 2 fingers to the brim of his hat. She went back to her garden. He rode home through the late afternoon gold, the land broad and quiet on every side, unto the creek just barely audible to the south. They went to Harlan's Crossing the next morning, and the lawyer was good, and the documentation was clear, and Cutler's pattern came apart the moment it was laid out in front of anyone with legal standing to look at it. It took most of that day and part of the next, but when it was done, the water rights were secured, the deed protections were reinforced. Then and Earl Cutler had a very uncomfortable conversation with the county records office that cost him more money than it was worth. He did not come back. On the morning after they returned from town, Cole was at the south fence again, finishing the last of the repair work. The sun was up clean and direct, and the air had the particular clarity it got in the days just before the season turned. He heard Roper's ears go up before he heard anything else. Naya came through the gate on her bay, moving at a walk. She was carrying something across her saddle, a cloth-wrapped bundle about the size of a shoebox. She stopped and held it out. Cole took it and pulled back the cloth. Inside was a clay figure, the kind from the shelves in her house. It was a horse, rough-made but perfectly in motion. Head up, legs in mid-stride, the curve of the back like something remembered rather than observed. "My mother made that," Naya said. "I have two of them. That one is the one that was always meant for somewhere other than my house." Cole looked at the figure in his hands. He looked up at her. "For the colt," she said simply. "For when he turns out to be something." Cole wrapped it back carefully in the cloth. "Thank you," he said. She gathered her reins. "One more thing," she said. She looked at the flat rock near the creek bed, then back at him. "The doe dropped her fawn last week. Both fine. She is denning on the north side of the ridge, well away from the snake site." Cole nodded. "I thought you would want to know," Naya said. She turned her horse and rode east through the gate, back to her own land, the bay's hooves quiet in the dust. Cole stood at the fence and held the wrapped clay horse in both hands and watched her go. The hawk was up again above the ridge. The creek moved south. The land held still, and the morning held still, and somewhere in the barn behind him, and the gray colt that did not yet have a name, stood in the clean light and waited to become what he was going to be. Cole turned and walked back toward the house. Some things he had learned a long time ago did not need to be named early to be real. This was one of them.